Hi, I'm Lisa Bagshaw. Welcome to Bold Leaps, the show that interviews creative, inspiring, successful people about the risks they've taken to pursue their dreams. And today's guest is internationally acclaimed, uber-talented director, animator, and designer Josh Mepham. Josh grew up in Victoria and always loved to draw. A few years after high school, he read about a classical animation course at the Vancouver Film School in the Georges Strait. He hopped on a ferry to Vancouver, took himself to the course orientation, and signed up on the spot, knowing this was the path for him. After an 11-month program, he was hired right away, doing scripts, designs, and storyboards for high-end clients like Disney. After about 16 years, Josh realized his drive could not be satisfied by working for someone else. So he risked his entire career and went out on his own on a hunch about his own show concept. He and 3 other talented people founded Slap Happy Cartoons and have been developing, pitching ideas, winning awards, and creating a stir for the past 11 years. But as we'll find out, the journey is not without its high risks, sometimes devastating results, and white-knuckle decision-making. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming over from Bowen Island.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure.
What I'm really excited about in this conversation is many of the people that I've interviewed for Bold Leaps talk about risks that they've taken in the past. Mm. And you've certainly taken some risks that we're going to talk about in the past. But this business, the animation business, and in particular, having your own company in the animation business seems to me to just be fraught with risks. So we're going to talk about risks in real time.
Okay, yeah, no, it is. It's running a business that depends on people deciding if they like a show is very difficult because it's fickle. It's you got to catch the right person at the right time that happens to like your concept, right? There's nothing just guaranteed. When you go say, I'd like to make this show, it's not guaranteed. It's far from guaranteed. In fact, you're going to get a no 99 times out of 100. So it's difficult, but that's originals. A slightly more dependable way to keep your company going is through service work, of course.
Right.
Which is doing parts of a production on a show that's already been greenlit. But we started our company with the dream of doing our own shows, which is why we opened the studio. Yeah.
So what role did doodling or drawing play in your childhood?
It was my happy place.
If
something was worrying me at school or at home, or my happy place was to go to my bedroom and just start doodling. I was always drawing. My mom said, even just sitting there when I was very little watching Sesame Street, I would grab some paper and just start drawing Bert and Ernie, or it just was in me. And I think I got the talent from my father, John Mepham. He's in construction, has been his whole life, but I looked at his drawings when he was younger, and he'd think I drew them. It was uncanny. So the talent came from him. But yeah, it's always just been my happy place. When I need to take my mind off something, I just draw. Yeah.
And your dad was talented as well.
Yeah, very. And his mother. And so the talents all through the family. Yeah, she would sew these amazing little mice and fill up store windows with them. She was, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I've noticed you've posted on some Instagram, is it your son?
My son loves to draw.
Who also loves to draw.
Yeah, and he's amazing. And my daughter, they're both very talented. And my wife's talented too. So there's talent everywhere. But so it was my happy place when I was young. It's what I loved to do. I would come home every day after school before I did my homework and just sit down at my desk, crank up my stereo and draw, even all through high school. So, it's funny. I know that it sounds like a bold leap, but for me, it was my only choice, really, if that makes any sense, because doing anything else didn't make any sense to me. It was like, well, this is what I'm meant to do.
Well, and you knew that from a young age.
I guess I hoped that from a young age, but I did know that. I knew that I always wanted to go into something creative and that I want to draw. I thought it might be advertising because I didn't know at the time there was an animation industry in Vancouver. I knew there was advertising through my Aunt Susan, who I loved coming to visit.
Shout out to Auntie Susie.
She was, just the coolest, living in the big city. I was in Victoria, of course, and I'd come spend time with her and think, wow, I got to be here, and I'm going to be in advertising, and I'm going to draw. But then, as you mentioned in the intro, I saw this advert in the Georgia Strait for animations booming in Vancouver, which I had no idea. So followed that, and turns out it was a good choice.
Now, so you graduated from high school in Victoria, and then it was a few years later. It
was because I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Okay. I knew that university didn't sound like where I wanted to go because I just wasn't, I guess it's going to sound bad, but the whole academic thing didn't interest me. I didn't want to learn philosophy or business or science. I knew that I was a creative person. So until I found my path, I thought, well, I'm going to travel. So I would work. I did construction like my father to raise money. Then I traveled Australia. I came back home, did some landscaping to raise money, went to Europe. And then I came back and my parents were like, okay, time to make a choice here. What are you going to do with your life? And then I saw that ad. But that was a great thing about my parents. They were so supportive. They said, you want to travel? That's great. You want to go into animation school? That's great. They were always very supportive. And I think it's easier to be bold when you've got a strong support system around you like that, where you've got that safety net. I always felt encouraged by my family.
I think that's a really important part too. I think that gives you a sense of confidence that you can go out into the world.
It's a little easier to take chances when you feel you've got a safety line attached. It's not that it's any less risky, but you feel when you've got this team behind you saying, go, you can do this, it really helps. But also there was a certain amount of, and I think I'm like this in life, which is, I think one of my favorite movie quotes is when Han Solo says, don't tell me the odds. I don't want to know the odds of failure. I just want to go and find out if this is going to work or not. Like even on living on Bowen Island, there's a good chance when you're going for a ferry, you might not make it. And I always make it, when I'm driving, I don't turn on the stereo because it'll show me the time and I'll know that I have slim odds of making this boat. I'd rather just go for it and see what happens.
So is that how you go into sort of these creative projects, is you don't think about failure?
Yeah, because well, first of all, I believe strongly in what I'm doing. So you've got to have that belief to pursue it in the beginning. But if you knew that, look, there's a 90% chance this isn't going to work, then it kind of takes the wind out of your sails, doesn't it? So, and in this business, there's a really good chance it's not going to get greenlit. So you sort of have to just go for it with all the confidence that you can muster and get out there and pitch it. And there's a lot of rejection in this business, a lot. So you have to have this kind of drive that is okay with that and can just keep marching forward against all odds.
We have to take a break, but when we come back, I do want to talk about your drive and how you deal with all this rejection. I have no idea. So we have to take a break, but when we come back, we are going to talk about all those and more. So please stay with us. Welcome back to Bold Leaps. I am here with Josh Mepham, internationally renowned animator, and we are talking about rejection.
Yeah.
Tell me about the rejection in this business.
Well, there's a lot of it because think about it. There's hundreds and hundreds of people out there pitching really good show ideas. So as disappointing as rejection can be, I do understand it at the same time. If you're sitting there in Netflix or Disney or Amazon and you're going to get a ton of shows pitched to you, and you can't take them all, can you? So you are going to say no to most of them unless they're just the perfect show at the right time. So I understand why they say no, but it doesn't make it any easier because you've put a lot of time and a lot of effort into this pitch. So you have to believe so strongly in your product that there's a home out there somewhere for it. And luckily there are more avenues these days. There used to just be a couple channels, right? But now that there's a million streaming services, so there are more avenues for your ideas. So you just have to tell yourself that look, yeah, I didn't find a home, but there probably is somewhere out there for it. And you also have to look at the successes you've had in the past and know that this does take time and that success does happen. When we opened our studio, it was because of our first show we sold called Nerds and Monsters to YTV. We had been pitching that and working on that for 7 years before it got greenlit. So that's
7 years?
Yeah. Yeah, and even Phineas and Ferb, one of the biggest hits of all time, that was 10 years of that guy getting told no. And he believed in it so strongly, he knew that, you know, even though you're saying no, you're wrong, I'm right. This deserves to be made. And look at, you know, how massive that is. And Nerds and Monsters, 7 years, we kept at it. So it's those little wins along the way that give you that hope and that inspiration to keep going, even though you're constantly hearing no. And every time you get that thanks so much email, but no, it hurts. It does. It really, you know, takes the wind out of your sails. But you just got to look at your successes and know that what you're pitching or what you're selling is worthwhile. Yeah.
Well, the Nerds and Monsters is a good example because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you had this concept, which is what gave you the courage and
That's how we opened our studio.
And the drive to open Slap Happy.
That's right. So we pitched it to the company we were working at. They passed, which again is their right. Everybody, you know, it wasn't for them at the time. And we thought, no, we really believe in this. So we started going off to the markets. There's these markets in the industry where everybody goes and tries to pitch and sell to each other. And there's this one in New York that happens every February. So we would go there on our own dime and try to sell our show ideas. And we managed to do that finally with Nerds and Monsters to YTV. And then we had this choice. Do we produce this show here where we're working, or should we use this opportunity to go open our own shop, which we knew was our dream? So we did it. And it was terrifying. You know, we told YTV, yeah, we're ready to roll. But then we had to run out and look for a studio space and hire people. We had nothing, you know. And
you were employed for 16 years.
16 years at this other company. So here I was, I had at the time a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. So new father, I got to support my family. Yeah, a very supportive wife, and very understanding wife, which is, as I was talking about earlier, that when you've got that support and that belief system, because she's so great at telling me, no, you can do this. You know,
you need that.
I believe in you. You do. No, my wife's name is Naomi, and she is just my rock. I know it's cliche to say that, but she really is. I couldn't have done any of this without her support. But as I was saying, I had 2 young kids. I had been working at this place for 16 years for steady income and thought, well, my dream is to have my own studio, but what if this doesn't work? I've got a young family, what am I going to do? But I knew, and I had a phone call with one of my partners at the time who started Slap Happy with me, Vito, he lives in LA. And he gave me a pep talk and said, look, we can do this. And he was right. And I'm so glad we did, because we went on to do 2 seasons of that show. Then we rolled into service work, which keeps the lights on, keeps your crew working. And then we were right back out there trying to sell our next original. The Hollow, which we sold to Netflix.
Well, that was an interesting story too.
Yeah.
Because, well, how did you get that pitched?
So, of course, this was the very beginning of Netflix getting into originals. This was back in 2015-ish. Original animation, and Vito, who lives in LA, just kept hounding Netflix saying, can we get a pitch meeting? No one was getting back to him. So we happened to be down there, Vito and I, at a industry party, and we cornered someone from Netflix and said, look, you got to give us just an opportunity here.
You literally cornered them?
Literally cornered them.
Like at a party or something?
Yeah, it was like one of those LA rooftop parties. It was awesome. And that guy did give Vito a number. Vito started calling that number and finally got a meeting. He went in, pitched The Hollow, which was this amazing concept, really cool idea, and one that we believed in strongly. We knew that it deserved to be made. And the guy loved it on the spot. He said, yeah, this is great, let's do it. And this was back when Netflix was just green lighting, you know, it was the Wild West.
Those were the days.
Yeah, it was awesome. So we rolled almost right into production on that. It went from green light to production in something like 3 months. We did 2 seasons of that. And I think at the time we were the first independent studio in Canada to sell an original to Netflix. There were some companies doing large service work for Netflix, but we were the first studio to sell an original. We had friends from other studios, big studios, calling us going, how did you get a name there? Who did you talk to? How did you do this? And I'd like to point out that, speaking of bold leaps, our show was the first one to have an animated character come out and say that they're gay on screen.
Yay! So. Wow. That's so impressive. The whole story is so impressive. And
Thank you.
But going back to the white knuckle decision making.
Yeah.
Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong with the timing, but you had the opportunity to do a second season of Hollow.
We did.
But you also were working on possibly Corner Gas.
Yeah, that's right. So while we were working on Hollow 1, Brent Butt came to talk to us about doing animated Corner Gas, which of course we wanted to do. I mean, who doesn't love that show if you're Canadian, right?
So good.
So good.
Yeah.
So we said, yeah, we're on board, and we helped them produce a pilot or a promo, I guess, to help pitch this thing. And I ended up designing all the characters for that. So I felt really, really close to the show. And working with Brent and his team was just a dream come true. They were so fun and funny to work with. So that show happened to get greenlit at the exact same time as actually Hollow 1. I should backtrack. So this was before Hollow 1,
yeah. Okay.
So we were thrilled that Hollow 1 got greenlit, but it was at the exact same time as Corner Gas. And because we were the small boutique studio with only so much capacity, we had to make a choice. And of course, you're going to go with your own show.
Exactly.
But it was a really hard decision because we were so in love with how Corner Gas Animated turned out, and we really wanted to be part of it. But,
and devastating that there was only 2 seasons of Hollow?
Yeah, so we rolled into a second season, which we were thrilled about, and then Netflix expressed interest in a season 3, so we wrote out a season 3, and it was really cool. It is really cool. We still have it written and ready to go. But this is when things started getting more and more competitive at Netflix. They really needed shows to be really, kicking butt, like Stranger Things kind of numbers. And as great as The Hollow did, and it did really well, it just wasn't quite enough for season 3. So that was disappointing. And then we had to sort of scramble, and this is the white knuckle stuff. You've got these shows that you think, this is a go, we're gonna roll right into this. Then you get this, no, sorry, but we're not gonna do that. And it was like, oh gosh, we've got a studio full of artists, we've got rent, we've got all this stuff, we got to scramble and find some work real quick. But then that's where service work comes to save the day. And
I get stressed even having this conversation with you.
Yeah, there's a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah, a lot of sleepless nights, and we have to take another break. But when we do come back, I am going to find out how life is now for Josh, how he's handling all these white knuckle decisions, and how he copes with all this anxiety. Stay with us. Welcome back to Bold Leaps. I'm here with Josh Mepham, and we are talking about this high-stress industry of...
You'd think it'd be all fun.
Yeah, you would think that cartoons would just be fun.
It is when you're doing them, although even that can be stressful because the schedules are so tight on a lot of these.
To turn it around.
Yeah, so you get really tight schedules. So there's a lot of stress even making the shows because it's so demanding that you've got to get that out the door by Friday, end of day. It's got to get to the broadcaster or to the editing suite or wherever it's got to go. There's constant deadlines.
And how do you rush that kind of creativity?
Well, that's just it, right? You got to find, a lot of the time you're making decisions on what you can live with and what you just has to change, and you're getting pages of notes from the networks too, right? You'll send them an animatic, which is a filmed storyboard, and you get all these notes, and now you've got 2 days to implement 6 pages of notes into this cartoon. Meanwhile, you're looking at 3 other episodes in different stages of production because they're all sort of stacked in stages of production. So you might be looking at scripts on 1 episode where you're looking at designs on a 2nd episode and animation on the 3rd episode, and you've got to juggle that throughout your day while dealing with notes and deadlines. And so here I was thinking cartoons is going to be nothing but laughs.
We're just going to laugh our heads off all day long.
Just make cartoons, it's all.
Now, what is happening now in your life?
So I'm living on Bowen Island now, which I love.
Right.
And funnily enough, my first boss at that studio I used to work at before Slap Happy, Studio B, Blair Peters is his name, and he lives just across the water in Roberts Creek. And he managed to partner up with this guy, Nick Orchard, who used to work on the Beachcombers. And they had this idea, why don't we do an animated Beachcombers? And they found the rights, got the rights to the show. And then Blair gave us a call and said, hey guys, we want to work together again. So it's sort of come full circle here.
Wow.
And we're out there pitching the Beachcombers. We've pitched to CBC and we're waiting on word from them. And we're having a meeting with Ryan Reynolds, actually started his own channel called Maximum Effort. We've pitched it to them. They seem interested. We're doing a follow-up meeting. So
this is how it works. So you have developed it.
We have, yeah. We've got a Bible, a pitch pack, basically, which showcases the whole show, what it looks like, describes the characters, describes the environment, has some story examples in there, and that's what you present to whoever you're pitching.
And so, once again, you've got this brilliant idea, and you're white-knuckling it, waiting.
Waiting. There's a lot of waiting. There's a lot of waiting. You put all this time into creating this amazing package.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that you're like, all right, here we go. This is a slam dunk. It takes a lot of time just to get a meeting. You have your meeting, you pitch it, and then there's waiting and waiting to hear back.
What is the biggest lesson you've ever learned in this whole journey?
Just to stay the course and believe in what you're doing, because like I said, there are those wins and they do come. Just know that if you've got something that you believe in, just keep working at it, because eventually, as we found out in this long, crazy road, that those wins do come. You just have to keep pushing and keep trying, and don't tell me the odds.
Yeah, don't tell me the odds.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So would that be your advice for people that are too afraid to pursue their dreams?
Yeah. You know, it depends what that dream is, of course. But yeah, if this, you've got one chance on this, you know, in this life here to make the most of it. So I think, why not have a go at it? What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to fail. And I'd rather learn a lesson from failing than regret never trying anything at all, right? Because then you look back and say, well, I don't know how that would have gone. Whereas either you've got two things. You've got, you tried and it worked out and great, now you're happy, or it didn't work out, but you learned a lesson, didn't you? And now you know how to maybe adjust and try differently or to change your path. But I think you got to give it a go. You got to, I mean, if that's your dream, what a nightmare to never have tried it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to give it a go.
You got to.
Speaking of Brent Butt, he would say, give it a whirl.
Yeah, just give her.
Give it a go. Well, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your story with us. I know it's very inspiring because
I hope so.
It's real-time, high-risk fear, and congratulations on all your success, all the awards. I know Beachcombers is going to be a huge success.
Seems like a slam dunk to me.
It's going to be a slam dunk. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for another episode of Bold Leaps. Please subscribe to YouTube and follow us on social media for more inspiring episodes and updates. Tell us your bold leaps in the comments. Special thanks to Fresh Street Market. And remember, every step you take is a step towards your dreams.